Don in London, hello. It's December the 2nd. My video's all about recovery from addiction to either substances or behaviour. My substance, alcohol, so alcoholic in recovery, and behaviour, which could be around people, places and things, trying to be perfect, collecting, looking for the next best thing, actually looking for the next best fix, because I thought my way through my problems into my thinking solutions. And these days I've learned that recovery from addiction is really about emotional and spiritual well-being. So for me, emotional well-being is knowing how I feel today, and the spiritual part is simply being able to connect to reality the best I can. So what helps me keep sober a day at a time, or help me get to be sober a day at a time? Well, family, friends, community, society all played their part in my recovery, and also a fellowship called AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. I speak a lot about AA and the fellowship. I also recognise it's full of unique, authentic people who speak about their recovery where they will. And the best place to find out about recovery, I have found over the years, is in fellowship and going to meetings of the fellowship, where people talk about what's happening on a daily basis, their experience, strength and hope of now. And whilst everybody's unique and authentic, nobody speaks for the fellowship of AA. It doesn't need to be promoted as such, but maybe some knowledge and information might be helpful, which is why I do these videos and share a daily reflection from the literature. So what you see is what you get when it comes to AA, not me. What you see is what you get in meetings. And my sharing, if you like, is designed for people who are in recovery and just want to connect with some of the literature, and for people wanting information. So what is AA? I share the AA preamble here and then move on to the daily reflection. So, AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is the desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. What an order that was. How to be sober one day at a time. And in the past, if you'd asked me, could I live my life without drink, I hadn't even considered living life without a drink. So in my early days, what I found was I was going somewhere to a fellowship which suggested it was better to live without alcohol, and that goes for all the other fellowships for all the different substances. It's like the opposite of what we want to do. So in early days it's very difficult to get a hold of what could it be like to be sober, because it's really painful emotionally and spiritually as well as physically. And the suggestion is often to take 90 meetings in 90 days. It's a bit of a medicine, if you like, to deal with our feelings and our connection to reality, because for me at least I'd lost all connection with reality and I had no clue what my feelings were at all, other than depression, which just is a blackness and fear of living, and life would be better ended. So these days it's better to be alive and face my feelings and reality, or rather live my feelings and live reality. The Daily Reflections book, this one, it covers the 12 steps, suggestions for open, honest, willing living, and the 12 traditions, which are all about unity, service and recovery in the fellowship. And what I've learned is if I try and lean on one person too hard to stay sober, if I lean on them, either they fall over or I fall over with them, or both of us go down the plug hole. And the greatest good is done by the greatest number. That's meetings of AA, where what you see is what you get. rather than promoting an idea of being fixed, because these days we're not looking to be fixed or think our way out of things. We just feel right about where we are, and when we're not too sure about what to do, we have a fellowship behind us, and that is people we can call. And I also know that for every number I have in my telephone, if I've got 100 numbers, maybe 1 in 10 of those people might be available to talk. So we don't always get what we want in the moment. Sometimes we have to be a bit patient, or a very patiently waiting. And active as well, because it's all about taking action, but not one action to take a drink. And these days it's become second nature, but it took a while to stick. So, what is step 12? This is the 12th month, 12th step. This book covered 1 step a month and 1 tradition a month. So step 12 reads as this: having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics, and to practice these principles in all our affairs. So it's putting into practice what we learn, the wisdom we learn. And in this book it talks about about Serenity for December the 2nd, contingent on our spiritual condition. So it reads like this: having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. As I continued to go to meetings and work the steps, something began to happen to me. I felt confused because I wasn't sure what it was that I was feeling. And then I realized I was experiencing serenity. It was a good feeling, but where had it come from? Then I realized it had come as the result of these steps, 12 steps, practicing in action. The program may not always be easy to practice, but I had to acknowledge that my serenity had come to me after working the steps. As I work the steps in everything I do, practicing these principles in all my affairs, I find that I am awake to God, or simply good conscience, depending on your belief system, to others and to myself. The spiritual awakening I have enjoyed as the result of working the steps is the awareness that I am no longer alone. And that's so true for me, because I was alone for a long time, in my head, trying to think my way out of whatever particular conundrum I was in. And on my own, isolated, a drink in hand, I could fix the world. But when I went out of my front door, or off my park bench in the end, reality was very difficult to comprehend at all. So the transformation from being in a difficult problem, not able to fix myself, to living in the solution, knowing how I feel on a daily basis, and having conscious contact with reality. You know, if anybody asks, is spiritual a bit spooky? The answer is no, not for me. It's just simply being able to cope with reality, to be in the present moment, as so many people talk about in spiritual language. It's not religious. Everybody has a faith of their own, to believe in or not to believe in, or not to know, and or be able to not be able to define something. So there's much I don't know about life, and the more I get to know, the less I feel I know. That's the conundrum of living, because every day is different, and every situation is different. But if we try and play it over and over the same way, we don't get anywhere. And these days it's better to look at what is and what is possible. So what helps me when I want to do that, and I'm not sure, the Serenity prayer to God, or good conscience as you come to believe, or is right for you, not for me, what is right for you. That Serenity prayer works any moment, and it goes like this: God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference, for me, is just for today. DonInLondon, hello, it's December the 2nd, 2009. My video is all about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour. My substance of addiction was alcohol. My behaviour, quite addicted to workaholic, relationshipaholic, you name it. Anything to fill that gap inside, to make me feel better about life, feel better about me, and believe I was being a success. So many, many years of working as hard as I possibly could, trying to make relationships work, and never quite getting there, and always taking the edge off in some way or other. Could have been material things or drink, but drink got me in the end. That was the one. Addicted and dependent 24/7 in the gutter, and it took a long time to get there. And I climbed the mountain career-wise and then fell off it in a real tragic way, and couldn't make sense of life anymore. So it took its toll, and these days I'm more happy living in the day, making life work as it is, rather than wishing it were different. So the gift for me of recovery, one day at a time, being sober, not obsessing or worrying about who and what people think of me, and not fearing judgment of others, just being open, honest and willing to make life work one day at a time. So what a change in me, and what made it possible? What made it possible for me to be sober? Well, simply family who loved me when I couldn't love myself, and I won't forget that ever. Community, professionals who helped me along the way, and very often, I suppose, revived me from a place of oblivion. And these days I rely on a fellowship to keep me sober, so I can be a part of family, community and what is going on, and be useful in life in some way or other, and not fear judgment either. We will always get judged, that's the way of the world, but I need not judge myself so harshly and badly. Progress simply one day at a time, and never perfection. So sobriety, contingent on my spiritual condition, and what helps me understand what spiritual is for me, which is just simply the truth of now, living in the moment as it is, the imperfectly perfect moment of now. A fellowship came along in my life. Ignorant for many years of my condition, I'd heard of Alcoholics Anonymous, but never thought it applied to me. That's the nature of the illness. It says we don't have it. It applies to other people, not to us. So a fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous alerted me to my true condition, that I needed to be sober on a daily basis in order to make life work. And I go to fellowship meetings and I learn, experience, strength and hope from other people. And here I just share my experience, strength and hope based on the wisdom learned from others. And that's so important. So the fellowship of AA, I go to a meeting as regularly as I can, a day at a time. And what works for me, one day at a time, is just being here and being open to what is around me, and to be included and to love people and be loved back and useful. So AA, the fellowship, I talk about it. I don't share about other people. They are unique, authentic, and they share where they choose. But I share the message of experience, strength and hope, and what AA can do. And here is the AA statement of intent. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is the desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And when I share that, I'm slowing myself down into the moment of now, to just share a little bit of the wisdom that I learn on a daily basis. So how do I do that? Well, I utilise the books of AA literature as Bill sees it. It was good reading today for me, all about spiritual, and daily reflections as well. And the daily reflections is about the 12 steps and the 12 traditions of AA, the 12 steps of action to change my attitude and behaviour, and the 12 traditions to hold the fellowship together. So changing my attitude and behaviour to be open, honest and willing, that's what it starts with. And step 12 is a big one. That's the 12th step. It's December, so 12 months, 12 steps. Step 12 says, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. And I do, as best I can, just simply making progress. So for December 2nd in the daily reflections, and it's about prayer and meditation and sharing the message, it talks about serenity. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. As I continued to go to meetings and work the steps, something began to happen to me. I felt confused because I wasn't sure what it was that I was feeling, and then I realised I was experiencing serenity. It was a good feeling, but where had it come from? Then I realised it had come as the result of these steps, 12 steps of action. The program may not always be easy to practice, but I had to acknowledge that my serenity had come to me after working the steps. As I work the steps in everything I do, practicing these principles in all my affairs, that is, the 12 steps on a daily basis. Now I find that I am awake to God, or to good conscience, depending on your faith, to others and to myself. The spiritual awakening I have enjoyed as the result of working the steps is the awareness that I am no longer alone. In other words, I'm included, I'm part of. I can make choices today based on good information rather than self-obsession, self-will, ego, pride and all those horrible things that we can get stuck in. And as Bill sees it today, I just do these linearly. So it's page 274, going it alone. Going it alone in spiritual matters is dangerous. How many times have we heard well-intentioned people claim the guidance of God when it was plain they were mistaken? Lacking both practice and humility, they had deluded themselves and so were able to justify the most arrant nonsense on the ground that this was what God had told them. People of very high spiritual development always insist on checking with friends or spiritual advisors the guidance they feel they have received from God. Surely then a novice ought not lay himself open to the chance of making foolish, perhaps tragic blunders, while the comment or advice of others may not be infallible. It is likely to be more specific than any direct guidance we may receive while we are still inexperienced in establishing contact with a power greater than ourselves. So in other words, as we're learning, I'm just checking the time here, as we're learning how to be able to access our spiritual growth, that is, improving our conscious contact with reality, for me, and living life in the moment, this imperfectly perfect moment of now, I start to work out how to live, and not actually say to myself what I hear in my head is necessarily from the higher power. It could be from simply my will, my desire and my wants rather than my needs. So on a daily basis I need to check those out. Am I giving as well as receiving all those good things? So, and you know, in the last few days I've seen a lot of people, and I've heard a number of chats from a person who has stage 4 lymphoma cancer, and from people who have hurt themselves so badly with drink that there was no chance of survival, or it seems so. And the gift is, if we're sober in the moment of now, we are living life to the full that we can, no matter how long we've got left. And I'm very aware that in the past I put myself in such danger that people weren't sure whether I would make it through the day, and intensive care is not a nice place to be for whatever reason. So acceptance today is of prime importance. That's serenity prayer to God, to the God of your understanding, or to good conscience, or to a higher power which suits you, which is the wisdom of the world, the universe, nature, providence, wherever it comes from. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference is simply and always for me, just for today.